Hello and welcome to the Milan Talk podcast. I'm your host, Samit Paul, and we are, of course, reacting to the 1-1 draw with Lazio tonight. Injuries in mind, I think you've got to say it's a good result. We dug deep, we've come away with an important point, and I think it's a welcome point considering I would have probably gone into this game thinking a draw would have been a good result. Obviously, the disappointment comes into play with the manner in which we've conceded so late on. Decent finish from Correa, in all fairness, but for us to kind of take the lead with a decent goal. I thought the build-up was really nice between Suso and Calabria. Fortunate Kessie with the shot, the deflected effort. But for them to take the lead and then to kind of concede so late on, a real disappointment in terms of how we failed to clear our lines and really get rid of the danger. It hasn't played out the way that we hoped. So I'll take the point. You know, we are missing so many key players at the moment, so it is a good result. But it's tinged with disappointment, of course, because of the way that we've conceded so late on. In terms of the performance with the injuries in mind, I thought across the board, everyone put in a shift. Again, we can point fingers and say the likes of Barini, Abate, Zapata, just not good enough for me. I think Abate and Zapata tripped up over their own feet in two different situations. Zapata's clearing header for the goal was really, really poor. Barini, apart from that snapshot that he had, which was decent in his defence, every time he got the ball and tried to pass the ball forward, he gave it away. I just thought he was really, really disappointing, to be honest. You know, you can argue, yes, he puts in a shift, he works hard for the team, but let's be honest, guys, we need more than that. We're not here just to contest and kind of give teams a difficult game. We're here to really kind of stamp our mark on games and show our quality and come away with 3 points. So I was disappointed overall. Apart from that, Donnarumma made some key saves. Rodriguez was okay. Calabria was decent. Kessie was a machine in the middle, getting stuck in with tackles, bombing forward when he could. Obviously got the goal as well. Bakayoko, I thought he was okay as well. Again, a little bit sloppy at times, but overall, I thought he was quite impressive. Again, he's moving in the right direction, let's say. I think he's come a long way since the criticism and scrutiny that he was under at the start of the season. So I'm happy with what I've seen from Bakayoko. Suso and Çalhanoğlu, mixed, I think. I think they both had their moments. I thought they continued to try to find an opening. So you've got to give them credit in what was a difficult game. But ultimately, they couldn't get the service that Cutrone needed to kind of flourish and make an impact. So the front three was a little bit disappointing. But again, like I said, with all the injuries in mind, the circumstances, we were always going to struggle, dominate the game and set the tempo. So to kind of come away with a point and to get a decent performance from all the players. Gattuso even said in his post-match interview that he was delighted with how everyone put in an extra bit of energy, a bit of effort with the injuries in mind. So can't really argue with him on his assessment with that. And you can certainly see that from the players that yes, while we were lacking the quality to go up against Lazio in that sense, we certainly didn't have any lack of effort and energy to kind of go up against them and battle. So obviously, like I said, Lazio were the better team. You could argue that they probably deserved their point at least, but I did like what I saw from the players in terms of trying to keep their shape and defend relatively well, apart from the individual sort of errors that we saw. But I think overall there were positives to take away from it. So a decent point. We march on. Let's move on to next weekend, and hopefully we can get 3 points there and really kind of push on and get into that top four and wait till January. Speaking of January, that is another talking point that I wanted to discuss. In terms of, have we shown enough in that game to suggest that we can stay in the mix for a top four finish until January when the window opens and potentially we can see some new arrivals to really boost us and help us move in the right direction? I would hesitantly say yes. I think as long as we don't suffer any more injuries, I think we've got enough experience and kind of depth to manage the situation, especially with the games coming up at home. I think we can kind of get away with it for as long as possible. I don't think we're going to go anywhere fast with the likes of Barini and Abate in the starting lineup. I think that's just, that just says it all really about in terms of just languishing kind of in that fifth place. I don't think they're the players that can take us to that next level. So long term, absolutely not the solutions. But for now, I think, if we can dig deep like we did tonight, show that character and really go up against and get in the faces of our opponents, that may help us get over the lack of quality. And then hopefully with Higuain coming back from his suspension after next weekend, hopefully, I know there's a lot of long-term absentees, but a couple of players struggling with niggles, maybe we can get them back fully recovered at top of their game, and hopefully we can kind of kick on from there. But yeah, decent performance overall. Lazio the better team in my opinion, obviously with the injuries in mind, but happy with the point, and we'll just move on to the next one. On to your Twitter questions and comments, starting with Bradley Watson at Spidey0816. 3 substitutes left to make, could have killed the last minute. Players were gassed, left it all out there. Barini had one flash with that shot. Every other time he passed back or lost possession. In all fairness, probably a deserved result, but was ours to lose. Laxalt and Castillejo waiting on the bench. I'm going to get into the rest of the comments, but that is very much a common theme in the comments tonight. The substitutions, the lack of, should I say, from Gattuso. Don't really understand the reasoning behind it. As you said, Bradley, even as a tactic to kind of just waste time, kill time, run the clock down, make changes, kind of just disrupt Lazio's tempo and rhythm. Just mind-boggling. I don't really understand how we haven't made a single sub in that game, which is really, really disappointing. But again, whether it cost us or not, whether it we would have switched off anyway for that goal, up for debate. But yeah, very disappointing, and certainly you could definitely argue that Gattuso should have done something more with his substitutions. As I mentioned, that is a point echoed by many of you with Jmart at Jmart2075. Totally agree with Bradley here. Using the 3 subs in the last 5 minutes to add fresh legs and slow Lazio's attacks would have been of use. 100% agree with you. Joe Milanista at the Milanisti11. Not a terrible result on paper, but given the circumstances, having taken the lead late on, we really should have capitalised. Gattuso should have managed the game better for me, maybe made some subs to run down the clock, etc. Bakayoko and Çalhanoğlu definitely improving too. Honestly though, Paqueta can't come soon enough. We're missing a lot of creativity in midfield. Yeah, Joe, as always, can't disagree with anything you've mentioned there. Again, to echo the points made a minute ago regarding the subs, Gattuso definitely could have managed the game better. I think he could have, like the guys have mentioned, fresh legs to kind of just shore things up defensively, disrupt Lazio. There's so many benefits to making those late subs, even if it's just like for likes. I don't really understand how he hasn't made any. So yeah, really disappointing aspect to the game there. And yeah, Bakayoko, Çalhanoğlu improving, moving in the right direction, absolutely. And Paqueta coming in January. Well, hopefully a little bit earlier than that. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, especially with Bonaventura out, even like I mentioned in my tweets a couple of weeks ago, when the injury setback, he was mentioned to be 7 months out. I feel like injuries have taken their toll on him anyway. He's struggling as it is. So to kind of bring in Paqueta, add that creativity to the midfield, I think it's very, very, very important. And yeah, so sooner the better he can come in and play that role on the left of the midfield 3. That would be fantastic. Guy Cohen at the FIFA 91011. Very mixed feelings. Felt the 3 points were super close. Unclear why no subs in the last 5 minutes to waste some time. Overall though, getting a point considering the injuries against Lazio is a good result, and we're heading towards an easier month for fixtures. Forza Milan. Yep, again, Guy, agreed. Similar points to the guys made a minute ago. It's just the lack of substitutions is baffling. I just have no explanation for why he felt he didn't need to make any changes, whether it was because he wanted to keep the shape, keep the personnel were, drilled in, they knew their roles, don't want to mix it up and kind of cause confusion in the latter stages. I don't know. But I think, and as many of you have mentioned, that substitutions were the right way to go. And it's very disappointing that we didn't see any. So yeah, we'll have to wonder whether or not that cost us in the end. Pedro Paqueres at Paqueres_ACM. So frustrating. Subs were needed to keep the result. How Gattuso didn't think that. And so many times we concede after a bad clearance from Bakayoko. He needs to improve on it. Yeah, Pedro, again, same thing about the subs. Can't disagree with you. Yeah, you're right. I think just the pressure building up, it was only a matter of time before they were going to get a big opportunity. And who knows what kind of impact any subs from us would have made. J.Gucci at GucciJ. The odds of us conceding when pressure is on elevates at such a high rate that it's totally predictable how many late equalisers or winners we concede on a consistent basis. Excellent point, J. It's not the first time. Just off the top of my head, the first thing that's coming back to me is obviously the Icardi goal in the derby. Yeah, if you're going to soak up pressure and kind of not throw anything back in the opposite direction, you're kind of asking for trouble, and something's eventually going to happen. So very disappointing, very predictable, and I want to say we have to learn from it, but have we learned from it? It's not the first time we've conceded late. I can only hope that we don't see any repeats moving forward, but yeah, excellent point. Walid at Akbar IUND, decent result, but should have used subs to kill time. 100% agreed again. Richard S at R Sultanus. This team cannot buy themselves a clean sheet, one of the worst records in the league. If someone told me a draw before the game, I would take it, but to give up 2 points last minute of the game is very disappointing. Yep, Richard, completely spot on. The defensive record, the lack of clean sheets, just been a constant and common theme throughout our season so far. It's a problem that we're simply just not rectifying or finding a solution for. So bitterly disappointing, same old story. But what can we do? We're missing Romagnoli, Musacchio, Caldara. I think it was probably a bonus, if anything, to see that we only conceded once with a back three of Abate and Zapata, especially. So yeah, it's very disappointing, but in the circumstances, I'm kind of glad that and surprised in a sense that we didn't concede more than one goal. So yeah, hopefully we can figure that out for the next one. Milanista at KA Danny Ancho. Gattuso was afraid to make substitutes, but now he pays the price. What a shame. Again, yep, another point on the substitutions, and a few of you kind of pointing the finger at Gattuso, which is fair, completely fair. He certainly should have done something to change the way the game, the pattern of the game was developing. So very disappointing on that front. Bradley Watson also had deserved result in my opinion with injuries. Very surprised, honestly. I think we can survive this next month, but we will definitely finish top four. Showed heart and determination. Just needed a guy like Higuain or for Cutrone to play off, link up more. Abate and Zapata played well. Barini, pass back or lose possession. One good shot. Bakayoko was very impressive, just needs that final pass. Donnarumma, good saves, nothing to do about the last, and just perfectly placed. Suso, not as effective as I'd like. Man of the match for him was Kessie or Bakayoko. Flop of the match, easily Barini. Yeah, again, considering the injuries, deserved result. I think it's fair to both teams, in all honesty. I think Lazio will feel aggrieved that they haven't come away with a win, but I think for the character and the way that we've shown resolve to kind of dig in and get a point, I think it's a fair result if you take into consideration all those factors. I mean, Abate and Zapata did well. I think that's fair enough. That's a fair point. But again, I think it just comes back to my same old moan and groans, really, is that they're not of a standard to suggest that they can take us forward. So my argument would be, okay, yes, Abate is experienced. He's a leader. He's played. He's been around for long enough. Maybe he is a very important voice in the dressing room, in the lineup. But the same old flaws. Nothing's going to change with him. He's not going to change now at this stage of his career. I think if Lazio were a bit more effective with that ball over the top that they looked for a few times over in behind Abate, I think we could be talking about a completely different story. So disappointing in the sense that I just don't feel as though playing him and the likes of Zapata, albeit necessary this time round, but for me, the less of them, the better. And also, just to pick up on your point, Suso not as effective as I'd like. Yeah, he did get himself in some dangerous positions, but couldn't really just find that bit of quality in the end. Man of the match, Kessie or Bakayoko. For me, my vote's going to go with Kessie. I think he was brilliant in midfield. And the flop of the match, easily Barini. Yeah, agreed. Again, like you said, he had that one decent shot, but not the work rate and the effort for me is not enough anymore. It's just every time he gets the ball, it's you know he's not going to do anything with it, and that's just really, really poor. So disappointing on that front. At Coutro Mask, not angry, just sad. We played very good football, and with Higuain we would have won. Cutrone was lacking. I expect big changes in January to solidify the squad. Ibra, Paqueta are good, but we need more creativity in the midfield. Abate, Zapata and Barini performed well. Man of the match, GGO. Right, so I'm going to disagree with a little bit of what you've said here. I think we had decent spells in the game where we did play good football. I agree with that. But overall, as a performance, I think for me personally, I can't see an argument, or for me to make an argument that we played very good football for the entire game. I think we were the second best for significant periods, especially in the early part of the game. Lazio looked more threatening, had their chances as well, and pushed hard at the end as well. So you can look at it in both ways. Yes, we did play well, but for me, if you don't want to, you have to consider the injuries as well, of course. But I think we could have certainly played a bit better. And yeah, completely agree with your changes. Ibra, Paqueta, definitely more needed beyond that. Hopefully that does arrive in January if we can sort out the budget for that. Again, I'll go as far as to agree and say Abate and Zapata were good. They did play well, but for me, Barini he's just lacking in every department for me. I'm not a fan. I was a fan last season. I thought he did have a role to play. I thought he was very important with his work rate and his work ethic. His versatility as well, of course. But for me, I think he's got to a point now where that's carried him as far as it can go. For me personally, I think if he wants to stay in this team, if he wants to continue to be involved, which I hope he isn't, because again, similarly to Abate, there's no sort of progression that he can make at this stage of his career for me. So I think the less we see of him, the better. But again, injuries will dictate that. We may well be seeing more of him in the coming weeks. And then Lawal Adeyemi at LA Wicks 10. Team lack character. Lazio is not Man City or Barcelona. Team wasted many chances to counter and couldn't hold on in the last 5 minutes. No excuse of injured players. That's an interesting take. Obviously, that goes against what we've heard from the other comments tonight. I don't think we lacked character. I think for the players that were out there, I think they did dig in and show resolve, and I thought they should be commended for that at least, if not the performance wasn't particularly great. So I will disagree with you on the lack of character. I think there was a show of that. Yeah, I agree with you. Lazio is not Man City or Barcelona, but they're not a poor team either. And I think, again, like I said, mentioning, you said that injuries are no excuse, but when you're going to rip out a good 4 or 5 regular starters out of this team, it's always going to have a negative impact and have a real problem for us. So for me, again, I think injuries have to be an excuse or a valid reason as to why we struggled. But what I will pick up on and agree with you is the wastefulness on the counter-attack. It's not something new. We've seen it on countless occasions, and forgive me for not remembering, but I know one of my listeners keeps writing in after games and saying, we don't make the most of our counter-attacks. Feel free to mention yourself in the comment section so I remember who you are, but we do get into these situations where we're in these really dangerous counter-attacking positions and situations, and we just don't make the most of it. That's just like basic training ground stuff. So if we're bottling it in games, or we're simply just too naive or too nervous, I don't know what it is, but we certainly need to make the most of any counter attacks that we give ourselves. And yeah, massively disappointing not to be able to hold on in the last 5 minutes. That was a very poor way to kind of drop 2 points, and it is a shame. Right, guys, thank you all for your comments and for listening this week. I'll be back again, of course, in midweek for the game in the Europa League. It's a big one. Obviously, we have to hope that we can get a result and kind of eases our passage into the knockout round when we play Olympiacos in the last game. But Dudelange this week at San Siro Thursday evening. I'll be back for that one. I'll be doing some stuff in reaction to that with my thoughts on the performance of players and the rest of it. And then on to Parma next Sunday. Early kick-off next Sunday, something historically that we don't do well in. Hopefully we can change that next week. We're at home. Got Torino at home after that. Bologna away, and then Fiorentina at home on the 22nd of December, which is going to be a difficult game. But 3 games coming up in Serie A, I think they are winnable, even with the injuries that we've got, and especially with Parma breathing down our necks in the table. Let's hope that next weekend we can get 3 points and really show that we can cope with the injury problems that we've got. That's the end of this podcast. Again, thanks for listening. Thanks for all your comments. I really do appreciate it. Keep your comments coming in down below on the YouTube video. Let me know your thoughts on any of the points that I've made in this pod. But until next time, Forza Milan.